August 9th, 1945. A B-29 bomber climbs into the sky over the Pacific. Inside, a crew of 13 men and Fat Man, a plutonium bomb with a yield of 21 kilotons. They have a primary target, a city on the northern coast of Kyushu. The bombardier will make 3 passes, 3 attempts to acquire visual confirmation, and then they will be forced to leave. This is not the city that was destroyed. 3 days after Hiroshima, the United States prepares to drop a second atomic weapon. The first bomb killed approximately 140,000 people by the end of 1945. The world saw the photographs, read the reports, understood what had been unleashed. Now the question is whether it will happen again. The bomber is Boxcar. The commander is Major Charles Sweeney, 26 years old. The mission protocol is identical to Hiroshima, visual bombing only, no radar targeting. The bombardier must see the aiming point with his own eyes before releasing the weapon. Primary target assigned. Secondary target, Nagasaki. But something is already wrong. During pre-flight checks, engineers discover a fuel pump malfunction. 600 gallons in the reserve tank are inaccessible. The fuel margin for a round trip to Japan and back to Tinian Island is now dangerously tight. Sweeney has a choice: abort the mission or accept the risk. He chooses to proceed. The bomb is already loaded. The window for a second demonstration is closing. Japan has not surrendered. Boxcar takes off at 3:49 a.m. The crew knows the fuel situation. They know they may not have enough to return. August 9th, early morning. In a major port city on northern Kyushu, the day begins like any other in a nation at war. Workers walk toward the arsenal complex, one of Japan's largest military production facilities. Smokestacks rise over the industrial district. Residential neighborhoods stretch toward the hills. The city has experienced conventional bombing raids before. Air raid sirens are familiar. Shelters are prepared. But this morning is quiet. Children head to school. Markets open along the waterfront. Ordinary rhythms of survival. Population, approximately 170,000. 3 days ago, Hiroshima was destroyed by a single bomb. The news has reached the city, but the scale is difficult to comprehend. One bomb, an entire city. It seems impossible. No one here knows that a B-29 is already heading toward them. No one knows their city is the primary target for the second atomic bomb. 7:50 a.m. Boxcar rendezvous with 2 observation planes over Yakushima Island. The formation heads toward the primary target. Weather reconnaissance planes have been flying ahead, reporting conditions. The news is not good. Clouds are forming over the target area. At 31,000 feet, Boxcar approaches. Bombardier Captain Kermit Behan positions himself at the Norden bomb site. His target, the arsenal complex. A cluster of military production buildings covering several city blocks. He needs a clear view. Just a few seconds of visibility to confirm the aiming point and release the bomb. First approach. Cloud cover obscures the target. Behan cannot see the aiming point. Mission protocol is explicit. No radar bombing. Visual confirmation required. No exceptions. This rule exists for a reason. The atomic bomb is not a conventional weapon. The devastation is absolute. Targeting must be precise. Major Sweeney orders the plane to circle. They'll try again. But the fuel problem is already pressing. Every minute in the air burns fuel they may need to get home. The faulty pump means they're effectively flying on reduced capacity. The crew does the math silently. They may get 3 passes, maybe 4. but every additional circle cuts deeper into the margin. Boxcar banks and approaches again. Now there's another problem. Smoke is drifting over the city, not from current bombing, from a massive B-29 firebombing raid on nearby Yawata the night before. 245 bombers attacked Yawata's steel plants, dropping incendiaries that are still burning. The wind is carrying the smoke northeast, directly over the primary target. Industrial haze mixing with cloud cover, visibility deteriorating. Second approach. Bihan searches for the aiming point through the bomb site. He sees the coastline, the shape of the harbor, but the arsenal is obscured. Still no visual confirmation. Sweeney checks fuel levels with the flight engineer. The numbers are bad. If they stay much longer, they won't have enough fuel to reach Tinian. They might not even make it to Okinawa for an emergency landing. The decision calculus is narrowing. One more pass, maybe two. Then they have to leave. The crew discusses options in clipped radio exchanges. Protocol is clear. They cannot bomb without visual confirmation. But abandoning the mission means returning to Tinian with a live atomic bomb still aboard, a dangerous landing, or ditching the weapon in the ocean. Either way, the mission fails. Decision: one more pass. For weeks, one name sat at the top of the list. Now the bomber makes its final pass. Kokura lies below. The city was selected for specific military reasons. The Kokura arsenal was one of Japan's largest ordnance production facilities. Artillery shells, rifles, machine guns, ammunition. The complex employed thousands of workers and supplied Japanese forces across the Pacific. High military value, legitimate strategic target. It had also been on the original target list for the Hiroshima bomb. When Hiroshima was chosen as primary for the first mission, Kokura became a secondary option. Now it was primary for the second bomb. And the weather was not cooperating. Final approach over Kokura. Bihan positions himself at the bomb site one last time. The plane descends slightly, trying to get below the cloud layer. He needs just a few seconds. A gap in the clouds, a break in the smoke. The coastline is visible, the harbor, the outline of streets. But the arsenal, the designated aiming point, remains obscured. Nothing clears. Bihan keeps searching. Sweeney holds the approach as long as he can. Still nothing. Fuel levels are now critical. Boxcar has been circling over Kokura for nearly 45 minutes. The flight back to Tinian requires fuel reserves they no longer have. Major Sweeney makes the call. Abort primary target. Divert to secondary. The bomber banks hard to the southwest, toward Nagasaki. Kokura disappears behind them. Below, in the city, no one knows how close they came. Nagasaki wasn't supposed to be bombed that day. It was the backup, the contingency plan. Boxcar approaches at 10:58 a.m., and Nagasaki is also covered in clouds. Sweeney and the crew know the situation is desperate now. Fuel is critically low. They may not have enough to return to Tinian. An emergency landing on Okinawa is the best-case scenario. If they can't bomb Nagasaki visually, they may have to ditch Fat Man in the ocean and attempt a dangerous landing with whatever fuel remains. The mission will have failed completely. Bihan searches through the bomb site. Cloud cover. Solid. No breaks. He keeps looking. Then, at 11:01 a.m., the clouds part. Briefly. Not over the primary aiming point. Not over the Mitsubishi shipyards and industrial complex as planned. Over the Urakami Valley, a residential and industrial area northwest of the intended target. Bihan has maybe 60 seconds of visibility. He adjusts, acquires the aiming point, confirms. Fat Man releases at 11:02 a.m., 43 seconds of free fall. Detonation occurs 1,650 feet above the Urakami Valley. The fireball reaches 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything within a half-mile radius is incinerated instantly. The shockwave flattens buildings across the valley. Thermal radiation ignites fires that spread through wooden structures for hours. The Nagasaki Medical College, destroyed. The Urakami Cathedral, obliterated. Entire neighborhoods erased in seconds. Immediate deaths, estimated 40,000. By the end of 1945, approximately 70,000. Nagasaki's hilly terrain worked both as curse and accident. The ridges and valleys contained the blast, limiting the radius of total destruction compared to Hiroshima's flat landscape. A geographic accident that reduced casualties. But 70,000 is still 70,000. Two cities on the same day. Kokura, 3 passes over 45 minutes. Cloud cover, smoke from Yawata drifting northeast. No visual confirmation. Fuel too low to continue. Abandoned. Nagasaki, 1 approach. A gap in the clouds lasting approximately 60 seconds. Visual confirmation achieved over secondary aiming point. Destroyed. The difference was not strategic importance, not moral calculation, not defensive capability. The difference was weather. Smoke drift from a raid the night before, fuel calculations made worse by a malfunctioning pump, a procedural rule requiring visual confirmation, wind direction, and timing. Kokura survived August 9th not because it was spared intentionally, not because someone intervened on its behalf, not because of evacuation or defense, because at the exact moment boxcar flew overhead, the clouds didn't break. Nagasaki was destroyed not because it was more strategically important than Kokura, because for 1 minute, Captain Kermit Behan could see the ground through his bomb sight. History turned on visibility, on atmosphere, on whether you could see through a viewfinder at 31,000 feet. After August 9th, Kokura continued. The arsenal kept producing weapons until Japan's surrender 6 days later on August 15th. Workers returned to the production lines. Families resumed daily life in the shadow of what almost happened. Some knew, some didn't. But the city survived. Nagasaki did not continue. The Urakami Valley was flattened. Survivors described a landscape so altered they could not recognize their own neighborhoods. Buildings reduced to shadows, lives erased in an instant. The cultural and human loss was immeasurable, and it happened because of a cloud. The margin between the two cities? What Kermit Behan could see through his bomb sight. Between survival and annihilation, 60 seconds of visibility. Not ideology, not fate, not divine intervention. Just weather and fuel and procedural rules and a malfunction discovered during pre-flight checks. History doesn't always turn on the grand moments we expect. Sometimes it turns on clouds. Nagasaki was destroyed because the clouds parted for 60 seconds. Kokura was spared because they didn't. History does not always turn on inevitable forces or carefully planned strategies. Sometimes it turns on weather, on mechanical failures, on what you can see in a single moment. 31 years earlier, another small moment fractured the entire century. A wrong turn on a street in Sarajevo, a driver who missed his route, and the assassination that ignited World War I. Next on Lore&Ruin, the wrong turn that started World War I. This is The Moment Before, a series about the fragile hinge points that changed everything. Subscribe. History is darker than you think.